Of course. Yeah, my kids she's very I was like, I can't have. Not very westernized. It's like,
Hey, good evening. This is the Monday, May 20th, University of Heights City Council meeting. I want to thank everybody for coming. Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll? I'm sorry. Oh, sorry about that.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mrs. Sachs?
Here.
Mr. Cooney?
Here.
Mrs. Wise?
Here.
Mr. Rock?
Here.
Ms. Marshall? Here. Ms. Weiser?
Here.
Will everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we are now on to the reading and disposal of the journal. We do have a set of minutes. Is there any discussion? Yeah, Mrs. Sachs?
Thank you. So Ms. Kelly, I sent you some correction. There was one correction that was extraneous pages. Somebody responded. Okay. No.
I responded to Mrs. Wise, so you started not see it.
Okay.
You want to label them?
No.
Yeah, Mrs. Sachs, you have a table?
Give me 1 second.
Pages 16 and 17 of the packet. The matter minutes. Oh, I didn't.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so everything's okay with the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move. So,
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sachs?
aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Abstain.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Okay, that passes. The next item is additions and removals from the agenda or referrals to committee. Mr. Cooney, did you have something?
No, just.
I actually have something to remove, letter H. Ordinance 2024-36 to dissolve the University of Heights City Beautiful Corporation, repeal Chapter 280 of the city's codified ordinances, and authorizing the mayor to execute and file all documents necessary for the dissolution of the CIC. I will make a motion. Is there a second? Ms. Weiser, is that a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Will this be referred to committee of the whole?
I was going to table another item when we come to it for the committee of the whole, but we can remove that. It can be discussed in the committee of the whole, yes. Mr. Ryan, in terms of removing it, can we remove it and then move it to the committee?
If you want to amend your motion, you can do both.
Remove it, yes, authorized to move it to the committee?
Sure.
Okay, so I will amend my motion to remove it from the agenda and ask the council to move it into a community of the whole meeting, which is scheduled for 2 weeks from now. Ms. Weiser, are you still okay with that motion, or would you
Which
like?
one? 2024-36?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Any comments on this? Okay, Mrs. Thompson, call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, are there any other additions or removals?
That's right.
Yeah.
I would ask that we table ordinance 2024-32, refer to the community of the whole meeting, scheduled for 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Cooney. Is there a second, or is there a second for this? I will second it. Are there any comments?
Would you state the reason why?
As I stated in the last council meeting, in regards to this ordinance, that public discussion, in regards to the content of the ordinance in the committee of the whole. There's been no public discussion, and I would ask that we are constantly referring to have things go through committee, gain consensus, and then bring to council.
I would respectfully disagree with part of what you said. Things go to committee, they may not have consensus. They may come with majority. That's number one. And number two, discussions at council are public. I would probably say they're more public than COW, only because residents are not formally notified of COW meetings, council of the whole meetings. They're published, but they are not on a regular schedule. I'm okay with the motion, but I think that needs to be corrected.
I would agree that it would be majority as opposed to consensus with your statement. Yes.
And that there be a concerted attempt to make sure that that meeting is publicized, so our residents know. If you're saying it's a public discussion, that's fine, but the number of residents that are aware of it, that it's going to happen, can be aware of it. The other thing is it's a public discussion, but without any statement from the public. That would have to happen at the council meeting afterwards.
Ms. Weiser, I can publicize that, and since I lead the council of the whole, I always allow public discussion, so if there are comments, I will allow that, as I do in my other meetings, at certain points of the meeting. Ms. Sacks?
Thank you. Is this the agenda item that we're thinking of for Monday, June 3rd at 5:30?
Yeah, tentatively, we're just waiting on one issue to finalize that. Any other comments? Okay, Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall? Aye. Ms. Weiser?
Okay, thank you. Are there any other additions or removals for the agenda or referral to committee? Okay, are there any comments from the audience? Comments are limited to 5 minutes. If there's anybody, if you could please raise your hand and step to the mic.
May I have an assistant tonight?
You could just state your name and address, thank you.
Tina Hana Byer, University Parkway. At the last council meeting on May 6th, 2024, after the council meeting on May 6th, I reviewed the recording of the meeting on the city's YouTube page. The recording is substantially corrupted, with large parts of the discussion missing that prevent a viewer from understanding the context of many of the subjects of discussion. There is missing audio, missing video or a green screen, and at times the screen is pixelated. I'd also like to note that these and other issues have occurred with every single council meeting since the affidavit to recall the mayor was initiated on March 8th. Anecdotally, I've been told that this has actually been an issue for many years. For the record, I'd like to reread a portion of the comments I made at the last council meeting that are missing from the recording on the city's YouTube page, and I'd like to request that the timer be paused until I have finished rereading the following. I'd like to point out the following that a supporter of the mayor posted on Facebook in the last week of April regarding the current campaign to recall the mayor. Casually noted in passing, all petitions submitted to the County Board of Elections are public records. The names and signatures on petitions can be and will be examined by interested observers to see whether they match the signatures on file for voter registrations. Such signatures are not secret like ballots in an election and can be published, each and every one. Anyone who falsifies a signature is a felony under Ohio law. You can look it up. I'd like to point out that in this screenshot, you can see, if you were close enough to see the screenshot, that Mayor Brennan is one of those who liked this post, which would indicate that he agrees with the content of this post. Indeed, the mayor's name is listed as the 4th of 5 who liked this post. This concludes my reading of the comments that are missing from the recording of the last city council meeting. Today, a resident who owns a corporate AV company offered to discuss with the city and council an offer to build a package and train someone to run the recordings of the city council meetings. If the city hears from that person, I do hope that both council and the administration will give it serious consideration. Finally, to change the subject a little, I'd like to repeat part of a conversation I heard recently among several residents. During discussion of the recent controversy surrounding the city mowing residents' grass above 8 inches, even if recent rains have not given residents a chance to mow. One participant very casually said, "Oh, I had them show up to mow once. I just gave the guy $40 to go away and mowed it myself." Congratulations, Mayor Brennan, for continuing to run a tight ship. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments?
Sean Belt, 2292 Canterbury. Mayor Brennan released a statement to be read in the public record at the May 13th CIC meeting in his absence. It begins, quote, "The city created the Community Improvement Corporation, known as University Heights City Beautiful Corporation, to negotiate and enter into contracts without the legal constraints that the city has. such as requiring competitive bidding among developers, end quote. Mayor Brennan is correct, but not exhaustive. Here's a fuller list of reasons why City Council and Mayor Brennan created the CIC. Section 1 of the ordinance which created the CIC states, quote, "It is the policy of the City of University Heights to promote the health, safety, and general welfare of its residents and growth and development of business and industry within the city through the designation of a community improvement corporation as such agency," end quote. Section 2 of this same ordinance states that the CIC shall be for the purposes of economic development, for the purposes of implementation of the city's most recent master plan, for other real estate development purposes, and shall be authorized to sell public property without public bidding upon prior approval of this council, end quote. In his recent statement, Mayor Brennan continues, quote, "The CIC was created for the townhome project, which is now known as South Taylor Road condominiums and is underway, together with some infill housing which is completed. As of now, all developable vacant parcels have been developed. In the case of the townhomes, the first 4 units have been constructed and the next 4 are underway. The city has no plans and no intention to transfer any further land to the CIC for development," end quote. I'm repeating that last sentence for emphasis. The city has no plans and no intentions to transfer any further land to the CIC for development. As the resident member of the CIC board, I ask why. In Mayor Brennan's words, quote, "The purpose of the CIC has been fulfilled and the time has come to wind it up," end quote. Is it Mayor Brennan's belief that the CIC was made to help create the South Taylor Townhome project as well as a limited amount of infill housings, then close up shop? Why would the founding ordinance for our city CIC list multiple purposes, all of them ongoing and perpetual purposes, if it was only created for 2 projects, one home development and infill housing for past vacant lots? Mayor Brennan's statement continues, quote, "For a time, the administration entertained the idea of keeping the CIC for undetermined future projects." Just a quick aside, Mayor Brennan, the CIC is not the administration's to keep or do away with. Continuing with his comment, this was conditioned on restructuring the governance to require an affirmative vote of 5 out of 7 on any substantive vote. This proposal was rejected by the council and council-appointed board members at the last regular meeting, end quote. The CIC has had multiple good discussions about this voting structure and to this date has decided not to change it. For Mayor Brennan, however, this is seen as, quote, "clear and convincing evidence of the City Council's continued desire to run the CIC at its whims with this controlling majority of 4 out of 7, end quote. This sentence by the mayor removes my agency as a singular board member. I am not a member of council or an administrative employee. I am a resident working alongside council and administration representatives. At the last council meeting, Councilperson Weiser related a conversation we had last fall in which I asked her to not bring an ordinance forward that sought to restructure the CIC board. I did so because I believed and still believe that our board should work through its own difficulties without council inserting its powerful influence to force change in our city's CIC. I actually agree with the idea of our board voting on who holds the positions of president and vice president. I agree that it could help to create consensus and harmony on the board. That doesn't mean I agree with the ordinance being brought forward. Rather, I agree with the goals of the ordinance, consensus and harmony in service of promoting growth and development in our city. And now with this next statement, we see the mayor inserting his powerful influence to force change in our city CIC. Quote, "After consulting with the city law director, I am announcing that except for the purposes of effectuating a wind-up, the administration is withdrawing its support of the University Heights City Beautiful CIC. The city will no longer provide the services of a treasurer or a secretary from administration staff. The city will no longer require them or require the administration directors to attend CIC board meetings. I will have prepared for the next city council meeting an ordinance dissolving the CIC and repealing Chapter 280 of the city's codified ordinances." Mayor Brennan is calling for our city's CIC to end. Is this a fitting end to such a young CIC? Do we feel there is not room for economic development in our city, that there will be no future real estate development opportunities? Has our master plan been achieved with zero need for any assistance? Will the city never again have a need to enter into contracts without the legal constraints that are put on city government? Obviously, the answer to all these questions is no. There is no reason to call for the end of our CIC. There is no reason to withdraw administration support for our CIC. There are a lot of exciting opportunities for our city in the future, and I look forward to the University Heights City Beautiful Corporation being involved in those opportunities. This CIC was not created only for the Brennan administration or for the council as it existed in 2018. The CIC was created for our future, None of the current board members will be on the CIC in a handful of years. Who knows who will be working to create this better tomorrow that is at the core of the work that administration, council, and the CIC commit themselves to. One thing is for sure, no one will be on the board if the mayor's current statement holds any sway in how the future looks. The CIC was created to work towards a better tomorrow in University Heights, and I hope it is given the chance to do that.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from the audience?
Ellie Sheehy, 3917 Faversham Road. Sean, I am so sorry. Those were beautiful words, but they were not captured on the live stream. I have 3 residents who are texting me right now letting me know that the live stream is not capturing these comments. So much for transparency. We're not having that. This administration is committed to silencing the voices of the residents. So I'm glad that you like that. I'm glad that you're proud. This is an embarrassment for the city.
So, I'm just going to pause right now. Is it live stream?
I have 4 people now texting me that they can't. It's not coming through. They couldn't hear Chris talk earlier.
Maybe they should read themselves once it's on, so.
Can we just check this camera right here? Or you're seeing it right now?
I'm viewing it on another device. Oh,
Okay.
I don't know what this.
They're seeing.
It might be in something on YouTube.
I can hear it and I can see it. Maybe it's time to do YouTube.
Yeah, it's 2024. What are we doing?
Okay. So
Figure it out.
We're going to go on to the rest of the council agenda.
Wait, one more.
Hi.
One more comment? Thank you. If you just state your name and
how do I get this to work? Is this working? Hi, I live at 4026 Silsby Road. I'm here to ask the City Council to do something about the traffic on Silsby and Warrensville Road. The pedestrian section is dangerous. There was an accident on Saturday night. I heard 2 cars crash and I heard a scream. I went outside to see what was going on, and I don't know the specific details of the accident, but the fire, the police, and the ambulance was there. And I'm really concerned about this because people are speeding down the street, and it is very difficult for me to get out of my driveway. It's like a war zone. I just think we need a new pedestrian redesign or something. That's all I ask you.
Thank you.
Please. I have a degree in urban planning.
Thank you.
Can you catch my name?
Angela Bear.
Are there any other comments from the audience? Okay. We're now up to reports and communications from the mayor and taking up action thereof. Mayor, do you have any comments?
I do. I have much to report on since our last meeting. On Friday, May 11, 2024, Euclid police officer Jacob Durbin was killed in the line of duty. University Heights police officers, including those through the regional EDGE SWAT team, were part of the response on Friday night and again on Saturday when the suspect barricaded himself inside Shaker Heights residence. That standoff ended with the suspect deceased and with the law enforcement community reeling from the loss of a 23-year-old officer. Officer Jacob Durbin was the son of Dawn Marie Durbin and Euclid police officer Vince Trousseau. A police family, Jacob had 2 grandfathers and 2 uncles who also were police officers. This past Friday and Saturday, I attended the wake and funeral mass for Euclid police officer Jacob Durbin. My heart and my deepest condolences to his family, to Euclid Police Chief Scott Meyer, and Officer Durbin's police brothers and sisters in Euclid, to our agency who were intimately involved in the incident response, and to the numerous surrounding police departments, to Mayor Kirsten Holtzheimer-Gale, to the people of Euclid, to all who knew him and loved him, from the 2018 graduating class at Cuyahoga Heights High School, to the Army National Guard with whom Officer Durbin did a tour in Kuwait, to Kent State University Police Academy, and then to the Euclid Police Department. This was an awful blow to our communities, and to our law enforcement community in particular. The events were solemn and somber. The officer was too young to die. His parents were too young to lose a son. His fiancée, Liv Webker, does not get to marry her best friend this July. In giving up his life, Durbin saved the lives of 4 people, 2 civilians, 2 fellow police officers. He died a hero. His murder was senseless and unnecessary. Another in the long list of those lost to gun violence in America. We must do better for ourselves, for our children, and for our police, to whom we hold the highest of standards, to whom we give the highest level of trust, and to whom deserve our protection as surely as they protect and serve us, while ready to lay down and actually laying down their lives in the line of duty. I never met Officer Jacob Durbin, but I knew him as I know people like him. I work with people like him in our police department, and I know him through his service and through his dedication. May we do better to protect them from harm. On May 7th, I was part of a joint announcement and press conference for the new First Call program. As the chair of the former Heights Hillcrest Communications Center Council of Government, Shaker Heights Mayor David Weiss and I had occasion to discuss at length what would become known as the Mental Health Response Program, or MHRP. This started as an initial pilot program in Shaker Heights for identifying situations where dispatching a licensed independent social worker in addition to or instead of police, which was then envisioned to expand into University Heights and other Heights Hillcrest cities. We have watched with great interest and attention the successful piloting of this program, the strides that have been made in public health and public safety, and now with grant funding from the Adams Board, from the US DOJ's COPS grant, the State of Ohio SCIP grant, the Gund Foundation, and Cuyahoga County. We here in University Heights will soon be able to dispatch a licensed independent social worker in select and appropriate situations. At the last City Council meeting, we passed the ordinance formally authorizing University Heights to join our partner cities, Shaker Heights, Cleveland Heights, South Euclid, and Richmond Heights, in the program we now call the Crisis Assistance and Local Linkage, or First Call program. This is a major advancement in public safety and public health for University Heights and for all of the Heights Hillcrest cities. What it means to our city simply is getting vital care to people who need it. It means meeting people where they are. Simultaneously, it means better use of our resources through diversifying our approach and through further acknowledgement that 911 calls do not have a one-size-fits-all response. Like all cities, University Heights has its share of folks who call 911 for want of other resources to get them the help they really need. With the First Call program, University Heights and other Heights Hillcrest cities will be better equipped to meet those needs and better serve our community and our constituents. In the immediate view, the residents of our community will be better served. And in the long view, I foresee that this expanded pilot will not only be successful in our 5 cities, but will serve as the template for further expansion, countywide and beyond. My thanks to my fellow mayors and elected officials, including our city council, and especially Mayor David Weiss for his vision, to County Executive Chris Renane for his vision, to our police and fire chiefs, all the first responders, our law directors, to Metro Health's recovery resources, to all those who made this regional effort possible. On May 15th, I participated in the annual Ride of Silence. Some 35 bicyclists made up the Heights unit, riding from John Carroll University to University Hospitals at University Circle. Another 42 bicyclists rode from Willard Park in downtown Cleveland to meet us at University Hospitals. Councilperson Brian King led the Heights unit. In 2023, 550 people biking and walking were hit by motor vehicles in Cleveland. We strive to reduce that number to 0. Last week, Superintendent Elizabeth Kirby, Cleveland Heights Mayor Khalil Sarin, and I, together with other officials, met with Governor Mike and Fran DeWine in support of Sight for All United and Vision to Learn to get eyeglasses to children who need them. Last week and this week, Oxford Elementary students have new eyewear. Of 265 students screened, 74 were prescribed glasses. Being able to see in the classroom is obviously essential to success in learning. Last week, Deanna Bremer Fisher, Dennis Pitts, and I attended the Tree City USA Awards in Rocky River. This year marks University Heights' 46th straight year as a Tree City USA. This is the strong work of 3 mayors, several service directors, and the commitment made by the residents of University Heights, whose special assessments fund the Shade Tree Fund, making the strides in our tree program possible. Further proposed enhancements to our tree program are forthcoming and will be announced. Earlier this year, City Council authorized the hire of L&E Group to assist the city in its efforts to obtain funding for a major sewer project here in the city, specifically the manhole separation project to improve the sanitary and storm sewer system in our city in order to mitigate environmental contamination in Northeast Ohio. Representatives of L&E Group and I have met with our federal and state officials here at home, in Columbus, and Washington, D.C., seeking their support. Tonight, I'm pleased to announce that Congresswoman Shontel Brown has selected our project as one of her 15 community project funding requests that she is advancing to the House Appropriations Committee for consideration. This does not guarantee funding for our project. However, we cleared a large first hurdle in obtaining Congresswoman Brown's support for this $1.1 million in funding, and we will continue to advocate for the funding for this project. So we have the potential to be awarded that major funding from Washington, but here's an update on a smaller but also impactful grant from this past week. After Council's passage on March 18, 2024 of the revisions to Codified Ordinance Section 1064.021, enabling loose recycling services curbside, we began looking for grant money for the curbside recycling carts. Even though the deadline had already passed, with the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District, Deanna Bremer Fisher wrote a grant application that was top-notch, even if past the deadline, and we submitted it nonetheless. On May 14, 2024, Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District heard resolution number 240514A, approving an off-cycle special project grant in the total amount not to exceed $25,000 to support the City of University Heights implementation for an opt-in curbside recycling program in fiscal year 2024. It passed unanimously. We will have $25,000 for the cart rollout this fall. Acceptance of this grant will be placed on the council agenda next time. And between the Mosaic magazine hitting mailboxes on Saturday and the opt-in QR code on the cover of that magazine and the postcards that hit mailboxes today, we have a big push through the end of the month for people opting in to recycle in University Heights. And when the carts roll out this fall, everyone here had a part in that, and we can all share in the credit. The 58th Annual Memorial Day Parade steps off at 11 a.m. on Monday, May 27th, and for the second year, the parade will follow a modified parade route, Silsbee eastbound from the Cleveland Heights City line to South Belvoir southbound, to Washington Boulevard eastbound, to Bromley Road northbound, and finishing at Garrity Elementary School. The commemoration ceremony follows the parade. University Heights resident and Iraq War veteran Mitch Liebslow will be the Grand Marshal and the keynote speaker at this year's events. Tomorrow, I will be part of a panel discussion of local leaders at the Climate Leadership Conference hosted this year here in Cleveland, Ohio. This conference is organized by Local Governments for Sustainability, founded in 1990 as the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. ICLEI is the world's leading network of local and regional governments committed to sustainable development. The panel I'm taking part in is entitled Implementation of Climate Solutions, Building on Collaborative Planning in Northeast Ohio. My fellow panelists will be Sarah O'Keefe of the City of Cleveland, Joe McDonald of Nowaka, Deepa Vadeas of NOPEC, and Andy Botang of Cleveland Heights. I'm honored to be taking part in representing our administration's work on sustainability and resiliency here in University Heights as part of a larger regional, national, and international discussion. Thank you. This concludes my report.
Thank you. We're now up to reports and communications from City Council and taking of action thereof. Just a short report. I just want to inform the residents of our excellent committee, committee heads and committee assignments that have been going on. Our building, our service, our recreation, our safety, and our economic development have done extremely deep dives into issues such as contracts, budget issues, and resident concerns, much more in depth than we have in recent years, and many issues have been resolved and have not just been resolved, but have been, many iterations have come about to just do better in the city because of that. I'm glad the mayor mentioned something with Chantel Brown with sewer infrastructure. Ms. Sachs and I were just at an event with Juanita Brent today, and I looked at, I didn't have a chance to speak to the mayor yet today, but there's over $1 billion in infrastructure funding right now in the state that cities really need to fight for, and our state reps, whether they're senators or whether they are representatives, have the ability to get that for our cities. University Heights is unique with our budget and with our needs. So it's something that I know Ms. Brent and Ms. Brown will fight for us, but I think that there's more opportunities there that we can fight for here as well. So thank you for that. We are now at reports and communications from the directors and Department of Finance, etc. So, Mr. Kennedy, is there any report?
I do not have a report this evening, but just to give you an update, we have to have our gap conversion financial statements filed with the state by the end of May. So that's really taking all our attention right now, but that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you. And I know you mentioned that you're almost complete. You almost completed the capital look forward in terms of our
five-year
assets.
capital plan. Yeah. I'm still waiting for a little bit of information, but I'll get a note out to you as soon as that's completed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Director of Law, do you have any updates?
No report, Vice Mayor. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Public safety, I see both chiefs aren't here. Mayor, is there anything to report?
Both chiefs have been excused this evening. Chief Rogers and the Department of Office have been through a lot the last couple of weeks. He needed a day, and Chief Perko is away at a conference this week, so they're both excused. No report.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, is there an officer at the door today? I didn't see anybody if we want. Okay. If you could just make sure that there's one going forward. Service Department, Mr. Pennington.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of Council. Just a brief update with the outgoing of the mosaic and the postcards. As of just before council meeting tonight, we were approximately 1,250 opt-ins for the recycling program. About 81% of those are the 95-gallon larger cans, with 19% being the smaller cans. So we are right at the 1,250 mark as of tonight.
Okay. So
it's on again?
the live stream's on still?
Well, the camera, I mean, is not like, is on, like, watching it.
Yeah. The camera in front of me, the light was on, so I just switched to.
I can see it.
You know, one thing that I learned today, and I guess this is for the mayor too, but our state rep has mailing services. doing that today also, so that's something to. Because I think, you know, it's supposed to just. Building. Mr. Kim, are there any? Community development.
So we went into the basement during the inspection, and there's excess mold in the basement. So I contacted the property manager today to try and see if I could get inside. The reason why I didn't, or that we executed the search warrant, was because the property manager just was pretty much unresponsive. So I may have to get another search warrant to go inside with the health department. I will be requesting the council deem this property a nuisance during the next hearing, or during the next council meeting, and based on the health department's assessment, this may lead to the property's condemnation. Other than that, the department's been busy. There's been 2 properties that we recently placarded, both on Jackson, at 2175 and 2186. The property at 2186 Jackson is actually owned by Huntington Bank. I will be getting in touch with them in regards to doing an interior inspection. The placards were in regards to the properties being open to entry. 2175, the back door was open, along with the garage. 2186, the garage is open. Open garages is something that the department takes seriously. So we'll be following up with both Huntington Bank and the owner of 2175, who Inspector Brown was already in touch with. Other than that, I have nothing else to report.
I have a question, first name. On the Barrington property, who was the property manager for? Was that for HUD or for the prior owner? So they actually work for HUD?
Yeah.
Okay. And just a side comment, the back door that was open on 2175 was a screen door, not an interior door.
Okay.
I was standing right there, Jeff, so,
okay.
And I live right next door to it. I agree, the garage was open because they had to take the door down to get in it to take the trash out, so. And they are continuing to work diligently, which is good to see.
Right.
And if we can get Huntington to do the same, you'll be a miracle worker.
We'll see.
Yeah, 2208 was another Huntington foreclosure that sat for something like 3 years before anything was done. So, good luck. I do hope we can. I understand from the neighbor though, there was a realtor around there, so they may be pushing to sell it. And they have to resolve some of it. The bank's trying to resolve some of the property liens that have been sold out, and if they get that resolved, that might move quickly.
I just have 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Is that house on Main Street going to be declared a nuisance also in the end?
Which property on Main Street?
The one with the broken windows that you spoke to last week? Or?
Yeah. I will be also bringing that property up as well as a property to be deemed a nuisance before City Council.
Okay, and that house that we declared a nuisance on Groveland, what's the status? Because I happened to walk by there and it's still
I just spoke with Mike Cicero about that property today. The case is not moving forward at this point, and I believe it's due to the judge who's handling the case. If it's not moving forward, there isn't really too much that the housing department can do. So it's kind of frozen, and he said that he was going to try and see what he could do to sort of help move things along. But yeah, the case itself was filed over a year ago, so it's been a while.
Okay. All right, and one last question. I didn't realize that open garages those are very concerning to you?
Yes, past history, I worked in housing court for 10 years. One of the stories that Judge Bianchi used to always tell was about a police officer named Derek Owens, who was shot and killed in a vacant property with an open garage back in 2008. So anytime there was a property that was before the court, he would always order that the property or that the garage be boarded, or secured, especially if it didn't have a garage door, if the garage door is inoperable. So yeah, we do take open garages seriously.
So a couple months ago, I emailed you a property on Rubyville doesn't have a garage.
Doesn't have a garage
door.
Oh, door.
Okay. Garage door.
I'll check and see.
So I know it still doesn't, because the resident, their next door neighbor, asked me about it again. So if we can just
we'll find out that one too. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Vice Mayor, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, and I did talk to Brad about garage doors that are open, but correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Engelbrecht, you are talking about vacant properties with open garage doors. Just so residents don't think property has to be
just to
vacant.
be clear, we're talking vacant properties, not properties that are occupied.
And one other question. The Groveland property, is that in Shaker Court or is that in Common Pleas?
That's in Common Pleas.
Okay. Common Pleas makes sense, it's right in this spot. Shaker, I think, moves a little faster.
They do.
Okay.
As long as there's service.
Are there any other questions? Okay, good. Thank you. City Engineer?
Good evening. Just wanted to let everybody know that the tennis and pickleball courts that started advertising last week. Some interest. 4 sets of spec books went out over the last 2 days. So hopefully we'll get some good bids. That opens on May 31st. Still working on the streets and Silsbee water main. And I'll be back in a couple minutes to talk about the pavement marking.
Ms. McAfee, could you tell me, I missed, what's the first thing that you sent out the specs on?
The Purvis Park tennis and pickleball court
thank
plans.
you. Okay, Purvis Park, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you. You're welcome. And communications and civic engagement? Thank you. And then economic development.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just want to announce that for the Economic Development Committee, we'll be having Zone Code come for our next public meeting on June 25th. That meeting will be from 6 to 8 p.m. here at Wiley. And we'll be reviewing the ADUs, the different districts, specifically the Warrensville Center Road District, and parking will be a big issue. If you recall, at the last meeting, we touched on a couple of those, but we didn't get deep into those. That public meeting will be, for that we'll have a draft. Once I receive the draft, it will be sent out to the committee and to all of you prior to the meeting, so you have time to review it beforehand.
Ms. Weiser?
Mrs. Strucker, was there like a doodle sent out for that meeting?
No.
Oh, it was just set up on some
I talked with Councilman Rock.
Right. There was no doodle. This was the availability of Zoom. So this particular meeting, that's their availability. Have other meetings to expound on what the findings are before they go too far down. I would like to hone in on where we're proceeding.
As a member of the committee, Councilman Rock, I really would have appreciated getting some forewarning and not here at this meeting.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, do I need
Yeah,
a question?
and just so, just to touch on that, we were given one date, actually, so, you know, and just because of, actually the consultant is getting married, and we didn't want it to go till into the end of July or into August. I felt it was gonna be too long, so, yeah, we were kind of strapped. We weren't tossing dates around. We usually do, but in this case we didn't, and because of him getting married and gonna be gone for a while, I just felt if we waited till the end of July, we're really pushing the whole
Oh, I
thing
don't
down the road.
disagree. That
So-
wasn't my point, Mrs. Drucker. It wasn't my point at all.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now get to the reading and disposition of ordinances, resolutions, motions, and consideration of agenda items. Agenda letter A, motion to approve seeking bids for the 2024 pavement marking program. Ms. Matthew?
All right, so I have the bid book ready, and I would like to start advertising it. It would start to advertise next Thursday, and it would advertise for 2 weeks on May 30th and June 6th, and then the bid opening would be on May 14th. And then I included my engineer's estimate plus, June 14th, plus last year's final contract with Pat Flowers Incorporated. And I also included in my packet the what bids came in last year. So you could just see there is a little bit of a range in prices.
Yes, Mayor, I have a question.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Ryan.
If you could help me understand on the units, the estimated quantities on your estimate. I know in the past we've had issues with quantities, and I think this time around we're going to try to get a finite number of what those quantities are. Could you explain where you got your quantities from?
Well, a lot of them are record quantities. I talked to Joe Chuney. I did some spot checking using the GIS, Geiger County GIS, to spot check some of my quantities, and I felt like they were correct numbers.
And the reason I ask, well, there's two things. One, on your estimate, and I get it's just an estimate, but your estimate versus last year's actual is almost double. And so I started peeking at what caused your estimate to increase so much. I get costs go up, I get prices increase, but I'm also seeing a lot of quantities here that have varied, most of them actually. So I wanted to just get a better understanding. For instance, the number 6 item on your estimate here is for the crosswalk line 12-inch type 1. It's 27,597 linear feet at $1.50. That came out, that was the largest line item, so I'm picking that one out first at 41,000. But on the actual cost from last year, that one was 23,353 feet. So it's quite a substantial jump in quantity and a 50% jump in cost, and nearly double when you take the two into account. So I guess first and foremost, will your estimated cost be on the bid documents, or is it just the quantities?
I would include my estimated quantities.
The quantity, but not the actual dollar amount.
Right, correct.
That's good, because I want to see what they come up with.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I think if we could look at, so you have last year's contract totals. I do recall there was some change order requests because some quantities were off, and that's understandable. I think it would behoove us to look at their pay app from last year, what their actuals were, to compare that to our quantities so that we have an understanding of, yes, this is what is actual, and with their change order, and spot check it that way. Just because I'm seeing a lot of variations here, just quite a bit. And I'm afraid that if they bid on 27,597 linear feet, and maybe the 23,000 is correct, that's a substantial difference in cost.
Well, I was told that last year, not Cedar Road, any of the pavement markings that was included under a different project last year.
Okay.
So that last year's numbers could have been a little bit smaller due to some deductions from other projects.
Okay.
First time through, I don't want to estimate too low and then for us to go over on something. So I feel comfortable with these numbers.
Okay, and that makes sense. If Cedar Road was not included, our quantities will go up because that's a 2-mile stretch of road.
Right.
Wow.
And
Was the whole street not painted, or just the portion that was getting resurfaced? I think it was just maybe a mile.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to be really careful about this, because if these quantities are accurate, or if they're just an estimate, they're probably going to carry over year after year after year, and they're going to bid based on the numbers that are in the bid document, which is what's shown here. So I just want to caution that we use the correct numbers so that we're not overpaying in perpetuity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But I appreciate that you don't put the actual unit cost, the price in the bid, so that we can see what they come up with.
Thank you, Mr. Ralph. So the one thing that I'm concerned about is so you're saying you think that the biggest change was because Cedar Road was not in last year's?
I don't know, I feel like maybe if there's something that looks good, maybe it was excluded last year, but I can't say for 100%. I didn't get.
Right, because, there's no school zones on Cedar Road, and there's also no bike lanes on Cedar Road, and those are pretty significant, those changes are pretty significant. And it is, the project in total is double, and Cedar Road, by the way, for sure, that has an impact on this. I'm not at all, taking that into consideration. For sure that does, but how does it work when we decide on the vendor? Are they only going to charge on what their actual unit cost is?
And what they paint, yes.
Okay, so they will not. If it's 5 and we wrote 10 in the bid, they're only going to charge us for 5.
Yes.
Okay, so, and we trust that they're really going to only charge us.
Well,
for
we'll
5.
have an inspector. Make sure that they're doing the work, and we'll check the pay requests and have an inspector also check the pay request to any items that any quantities we want rechecked or recalculated. He will go out and take a look and count up what he needs to count up.
Does it make sense at all to have, since the last 2 years were so off, just because of a variety of different things? There were a lot of reasons why the last 2 years were off, to actually have somebody measure them, or somehow measure them. I don't know how you measure them. Is that worth it at all to us, or is it worth it Now we have, there's no projects that, outside projects that are striping this year, so whatever they actually do this year, they do this year, and that's what we're gonna go by.
I feel like I'm gonna keep better track of quantities this year and be able to produce a more defined list come next year. So if you wanted to do it beforehand, we could take the time and do it beforehand, or we could start counting and measuring as it's being done.
I think a good first step is to look at last year's pay request.
Yeah, which you have it.
Understanding Cedar's not on there, but at least that'll give us a good basis on.
So, yeah. However you guys want to move forward, I can check some more numbers, fine tune this, and update it before the end of the week.
Ms. Hanson. Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Perhaps just a random sampling of that one line and measure that and see how that compares, rather than the whole thing is. And maybe, I don't know if there are any other anomalies, I have not compared it, but that sounds plausible. Yes. Cedar, but you'll find out for sure. How long would something like that take in terms of time?
Depending on how you want it done. I mean, if we could do it just using like GIS and see if we come in within 10% of what these numbers are.
I don't know enough about it. It sounds reasonable, but again, I can't. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm comfortable, this is your first year with our city also. You comparing from last year also, using your best judgment. Obviously, the vendor that we choose, we're gonna have to, come back to us anyways with the contract, so. And then the actual invoice will be correct, the correct dollar amount there.
Yes.
And this is just a motion to seek bids anyways.
Right.
But if you can go back, at least like you said this week, I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that. It's spot checking the ones that are like way off. Like,
yeah, the big ones. I got
like that one. There's a few others that would make it wrong.
I'll make a motion to approve seeking bids for the 2024 pavement marking program. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any comments?
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Weiser.
Would you include, pursuant to the changes that the engineer will be doing? Is that okay with you? After you review it?
Yeah.
That way it's covered. We're not locked into what you submitted. If you do have to change it, either up or down.
Right.
Sure.
Friendly amendment.
Since we didn't vote on that, I will amend to motion to approve seeking bids for the 2024 pavement marking program pursuant the engineer to review, to make updates to the possible updates to the bid document.
Okay.
There's a second. Thank you. Ms. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Sorry, Ms. Marshall?
Aye. Thank you so much. Okay, we're now at the new agenda item B, ordinance 2024-24, amending exhibit A of the salary ordinance relating to the city non-bargaining unit positions to include the position of senior service coordinator and establish a pay range therefore and declaring an emergency on second reading. I want to thank the mayor for updating this and putting an hourly rate which aligns itself with the other part-time positions on here. It now says $25 to $31.25 on here. Are there any questions? And Ms. Sacks?
Thank you. Do all job titles have job descriptions? And if they all come before council? Is that okay?
I'm sorry, what's the
all
question?
jobs, all people at City Hall who have job titles, are City Council aware of those job titles assigned to them, or no? Okay. Executive Assistant to the Mayor and Special Projects. Who is that person at City Hall who this job description of Senior Services Coordinator reports to? Who is that?
Deanna Brown, Fisher Group.
That is correct. So my question is, in the last couple of Mosaic magazines, her Deanna Bremer Fisher title she's been referred to as the Chief of Staff. Is that a different job title? Does she have two jobs? Could that be clarified?
I don't think that's relevant to this discussion, but that was something that was in the Mosaic. Obviously, she's not listed currently as a chief of staff. Her title is an executive assistant to the mayor on special projects. That was something that ended up in the Mosaic, and should have read it differently.
It's been in a couple of mosaics, 2 or 3.
I'm not aware of that.
Oh, I can bring that to your attention.
Well, thank you for bringing it to my attention.
So I don't expect to see that anymore, I guess, unless that's, or to see that that's this becomes chief of staff. That's all, consistency, because it's a little confusing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's something we can clarify. I mean, her job role is much more consistent with being the chief of staff.
Then what is it? Then it should be reflected in the position description, so that the senior services coordinator knows exactly who they report to.
We'll make sure they know that.
Ms. Weiser?
First of all, I would like to thank the mayor for finding out an experience working with seniors, but I'm curious as to the and/or. Again, this is a group of people that if it's or, somebody has an associate's degree, they have related office experience, working in a municipality, nonprofit, similar government education skills necessary. But once again, it doesn't block the city into hiring someone who actually has some experience working with seniors. And I'm just curious as to why, with such a specific job title as Senior Services Coordinator, we wouldn't require that without an or.
I think in every field and every job, there's a first time somebody is hired to do something. And if somebody has good qualifications that lend themselves to doing something to work with seniors, even if they have not had the experience of working with seniors before, I don't think we want to rule out a candidate who brought other things that tend to suggest that they would be up for the job. I think our last Senior Services Coordinator's previous position was Community Development Coordinator. And I don't know, if that neatly fell into working with seniors or not. It may have to some extent, but when that person was Senior Services Coordinator, that was the first time you've been a Senior Services Coordinator.
It was the first time we created the position. I certainly agree with that. I would point out, though, that Walter was older and actually did work with a lot of seniors in a lot of his life and around this city for numerous years and understood them fairly well. I do know that the limited programming that our seniors had, a number of them have said to me that that was something that they actually stopped going to because of the sameness. There are very active seniors in this city that would need something a bit more. I have serious concerns that if we just hire somebody who has no background with understanding seniors, that what's going to be presented may not necessarily give our seniors what they need. They are a different population than our younger residents. You can even see that in the park, where we tend to do things that would emphasize what people who are younger would want to do, and we provide very little programming there in a way that would meet what some seniors may want. When we say the word seniors, we're talking about people from 50 on, generally, because then you get into AARP, and the 50-ish hate to be called seniors, but we have active residents that are in their 70s and 80s. And I just have major concerns with that, and I needed to put them into the record.
Ms. Sens. Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree with Councilwoman Weiser. As someone who's actually worked with seniors in several different capacities as a direct service clinician, as well as an executive director and different jobs in between, seniors do need they have special needs in terms of their preferences, perhaps sensory, different things that they experience at a different stage in life that differentiates from children, young adults, middle adults, etc. So I actually wholeheartedly agree. I'm thinking back to the different job descriptions I've had to write as well as implement, and they all have some sort of focus on experience or education or something with seniors more than anything else, more than a college degree or whatever. It just depends on what it is. Some do require a college degree, but this sort of thing just has to be, this position would really need to understand the needs of senior citizens or people who are in whatever category it should be determined, so that we hit the mark and we're able to really provide services that are meaningful and desirable to them. I have another comment. Okay. I'm just wondering how many of the employees here, city employees, have in their job descriptions the sentence, or part of the sentence, the employee may occasionally experience hostility from the general public. So the odd phrase that I asked about last time that's still there for this job. I understand earlier there's something that's more appropriate, that they deal with the public and have to, there's some kind of wording that makes sense, that shows that provides information and assistance to senior citizens in a professional, courteous manner, receives and responds to complaints in a courteous and respectful manner. I mean, that's appropriate. But the hostility, that's just odd. Is it normal? That's normal? Is it in anybody else's job description? Even the mayor's?
I think it's assumed in a lot of jobs.
Every job.
When you deal with the public. Councilwoman Sachs, I would say that we have all probably felt the wrath of a resident that is upset, is verbalizing that upset to a higher degree than normal, and we take it as a part of the job. On a part-time position, especially where we're hiring people that may be younger, I probably think it's a wise thing to do, so they know they may deal with people who are highly irate and need to learn how to deal with that.
You don't think the professional and courteous manner
Yeah, and it's, well, I think it's a challenge for everybody.
That's 20% of the job.
So I want to thank both of you for putting that into the record. We are voting on the salary ordinance piece of it, but I think those are important discussion items that I hope the administration will think about. Is there a motion? No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I may address that. I'm gratified to hear the comments of Mrs. Sachs and Ms. Weiser this evening. There's a lot more we should be doing for seniors. And in the future, I look forward in a future budget cycle having a much more robust program than one part-time coordinator. So I'm glad to know that there's some support for it here tonight, and we'll work towards that. So thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Ms. Weiser.
The reason I brought it up, it also affects my vote on this. Because depending upon what we're going to hire, depends upon the pay.
Right, so we all know that we can't, we have no say in who gets hired for this, unfortunately. So our job is to make sure that it adheres to the budget and to this pay range of rate. So is there a motion to amend the exhibit of the salary ordinance 2024-24?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Marshall. Are there any comments?
I'm sorry, I missed the, what are we amending?
That's the actual
the title of
That's
the
the
ordinance.
title. Oh, I see. Thank you.
It's time to call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sachs? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Okay. We are now at agenda item C, ordinance 2024-29, amending section 892.03 of the tax code relating to exemptions to the city admissions tax ordinance on second reading. Mr. Kennedy, you're discussing this?
Yes, thank you. This was presented at the last meeting, in first reading. Is to eliminate a provision that's decades old that's been in our codified ordinances. It would primarily apply to John Carroll, but could possibly apply to other situations. And it has never been enforced to the best of my knowledge, at least during my tenure here and in the immediate time period preceding that. So I spoke to Mr. Bryan and I spoke to Mr. McGonigal about the possibility of just clearing this up to avoid any kind of inconsistencies and potential audit issues in terms of enforcement. And I don't think we would be talking a substantial or significant amount of funds being waived because of the low fees that were set when the establishing ordinance was originally set up.
Thank you. And we did have discussion on this at the last meeting. Were there any other questions for Mr. Kennedy or
why don't we raise it?
We won't be able to enforce it.
It's not been enforced.
Why not?
We won't be able to, and then
Why
issues
not?
with it anyways.
Why not?
Yeah, I guess it's 3% of the admissions tax, and then we have this exception provision that accepts, nonprofits, religious institutions, schools, and then has an exception to the exception for boxing matches, sporting events, and those types of things.
And I think it was anything over, charged over 41 cents.
Right. So this is, as Mr. Kennedy said, goes back to the 50s when it was originated. It hasn't been amended since the early 80s. So we wanted to clear this up since it's an audit year, and then we can re-examine the rest of it to see if we want to do something different.
Have we actually collected this at all?
Never to my knowledge, no.
Why do we want to keep it on the books?
We may not. I mean, that's. I think this is the first step to correct the obvious, and then we can re-examine the rest of it, whether it's worthwhile. But I mean, applied to, I think, institutions that used to be here, bowling alleys, movie theaters, those types of things.
Well, the mayor keeps saying there's some kind of entertainment center coming that apparently might actually get qualified under this.
That would apply if people are paying an admission to get into the establishment. But they would not fall under the exception.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, I would welcome a separate discussion at a later date with regard to whether we would want to have an admissions tax applied to a venue like that, closer to when that venue was realized. It would seem as if it would apply in its current form. The thing that we definitely wanted to address was the nonprofit university angle, the educational angle. That we are not collecting an admissions tax for people attending sporting events at John Carroll. And that was something we knew we wanted, that was easy. If we want to have a longer discussion about whether we want to collect a tax on people entering an entertainment venue that may be built at University Square, I think that's a separate discussion.
Okay, we can, if there ends up being any type of venue that comes, if university, hopefully when University Square closes and that comes to fruition, we can put that in a finance committee meeting. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2024-29? So moved. Is there a second? I will second it. Is there any comments, discussion? Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Okay. Agenda letter D, ordinance 2024-33, authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into agreement with the city of Shaker Heights for fire department vehicle and apparatus mechanic services and declaring an emergency, non-emergency. Mayor or Mr. Pennington, I don't know who's, because the chief isn't here, I don't know who's doing this.
Oh, I thought Councilperson Marshall and I should sponsor this and chair the committee.
So we did discuss it in the safety committee meeting earlier in the month, and I referred it to council for that particular meeting. So I am in agreement with it, so I support it. I recommend that. Well, I support it.
Yeah, this was, community discussed what Chief Perko said a little bit, the mutual agreement with Shaker Heights and how that would work. Say that again?
Yeah.
You just,
I can explain. So this is, Shaker Heights hired a mechanic. It is primarily dedicated to handling their fire department fleet. This individual is an ex-military personnel that was deployed to take care of our vehicles similar to these types of vehicles. So the chief is anxious to get this in place. He feels it will save on mechanics repairs because it's cheaper than the hourly rate we're currently paying at shops. It will be as an as-needed basis. We essentially be paying per hour for the mechanics time plus the cost of parts with no markup. And that if this were in place, we'd have a mechanic that's used to handling the city's fire vehicles and is familiar with them rather than taking out to a shop or making a mechanic that's not as familiar with these particular makes and models of vehicles, and that the turnaround time, because of the proximity of taking them there and picking them up, so faster turnaround time because we have priority as opposed to a regular place that's servicing many department vehicles, and we have vehicles in service more often and hopefully save some money.
thank you. And I just want to say this is a perfect example of shared services and resources that I think we should continue looking for in neighboring cities. Mr. Ryan?
Yeah, I just want to agree with that sentiment of regionalization. This is just an example of how something like a repair can be done in a regional effort, and it benefits Shaker as well because it's part of our shared services where our fleet responds to emergencies in Shaker and vice versa. It makes sense for them to prioritize these vehicles that are in their neighboring communities as it impacts them as well.
This is on emergency, so is there a motion to suspend the rules? Motion is by Ms. Weiser and second by Ms. Sachs. Mrs. Thomas, you call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sachs? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Rapp?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
And on the main motion.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sachs? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Rapp?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay. Agenda letter E, ordinance 2024-34, ordinance updating and amending sections 444.06, 444.07, and 412.07, and repealing sections 444.12 and 444.13 of the city traffic code related to bicycles and declaring an emergency on emergency. This was also discussed in safety, and I think Mr. King will probably be the best person to discuss this.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance seeks to update the codes pertaining to bicycles in University Heights. Much of the current code has been in place since the 1950s. Both changes clean up the language of our code and reflect the realities of today. The largest change is the removal of mandatory bicycle licensing. It is the recommendation of cycling advocacy organizations nationwide, including that of Bike Cleveland, that mandatory licensing or registration is a barrier to entry for cycling. In discussions with Chief Rogers, I learned that only approximately 6 bicycles are licensed per year. Rather than have our police department in charge of registration, I propose that the city recommend residents instead voluntarily register their bicycles with the free national registry, bikeindex.org. I've already had discussions with Mr. Cook on how these can be communicated to residents should this ordinance pass this evening. I think there's an opportunity to significantly increase the number of registered bicycles by making it more easy to do so. I'd like to thank former University Heights resident Scott Kuboff. A few years ago, he performed the initial research that led to this ordinance. I'd also like to thank members of the Heights of Bicycle Coalition for helping review and provide feedback. Also, thank you to Chief Rogers, Councilwoman Marshall, and the Mayor for review and feedback. We had a lengthy discussion during the last Safety Committee meeting on May 6th. May is Bike Month, and it would be ideal if we could pass this ordinance into law this evening. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-34 on emergency.
I'll second.
So we want to suspend the rules, actually. So do you want to change your motion? Sure. To suspend the rules first. Okay.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
And Ms. Marshall also. Okay. Mrs. Thomas, you call the roll.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sachs? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, and on the main motion?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's why you changed his motion.
We talked about that after the last meeting.
Yeah.
Once the rules are suspended, that suspends the reading rule, and at that point, we vote on the motion.
Because he stated what he was suspended. Which is not.
Can I speak? So prior to a few council meetings ago, we used to always say, if we were passing something out of emergency, we would make the motion and say on emergency. And then the chair of the meeting would then we would have discussion, then the chair would ask for discussion, and then the chair would ask to suspend, make an initial vote to suspend the rules, and then a vote to, on the main motion.
Okay, so do we want to redo it to clarify this to make sure we're...
Yeah, I think there's more than one way of doing this. It's just, I was under the impression that the chair asked the council person to withdraw his motion and just make a motion to suspend the rules, which I believe is the motion that we voted on.
Yeah.
And then she called for a second vote, which is how we often have done it. But when we didn't have the full motion, we only had the suspension. So we'll obviously want to be sure that the record's clear and clean, and it may be that a second motion is now needed to adopt ordinance 2024-30.
So the option, I guess we could just do, make another motion and pass it. Now that the rules are suspended at this point, or we can start over again, do it the way we want to do it going forward. So, leave it up to the vice mayor.
Well, if the rules are suspended, can you just make a motion on the main motion ordinance
Yes,
2024-34?
yes, that was, first adoption.
Okay, so, Mr. King, did you want to make a motion on the ordinance 2024-34?
So moved.
To pass?
I'll second.
And Ms. Marshall, you wanted a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Ms. Thomas, will you roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks?
Aye.
Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Weiss?
Aye.
Mr. Rock?
Aye.
Mr. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Agenda letter F, ordinance 2024, authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, 2024 Energized Community Grant on first reading. Mayor, did you want to present this grant?
Yeah, just simply, we're an OPEC community from time to time. We get awards under the Energized Community Grant Agreement. We don't necessarily have a project at this point, but we do have a deadline by which we are to accept the money for a future project. And I think the amount was neighborhood $29,000. Does that sound right, Dennis?
Yes, $28,981.
Oh, very
so very close.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Yes, $28,981. So the idea here is that we need 40 to go ahead and upload the grant agreement legislation approving acceptance of the grant agreement later to the end of June. So it's here tonight. We'd ask. I don't know if we have this on first reading or on emergency, but so there's really no reason to wait. There is a time limit here, and I would ask that the ordinance be passed on emergency this evening.
Okay, so it's on first reading.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. But there is no grant agreement in here.
Well, it's in the portal. And yeah, we have a grant agreement right here. It's 24 community grant agreement.
Well, it is the standard agreement that's prepared by NOPEC to I'm sure the city has approved for the last several years. Nothing's changed since past years.
It's on first reading. So.
Well, there's time, so we can bring it back next week.
I have a question.
Yeah, Ms. Weiser?
Thank you. And my question is this: if we approve this, I mean, I know it's on first reading, but if we approve this without a physical grant item, will that grant item come to council for approval before submission?
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to verify.
And I believe we've done that previously. We would do that again.
It's above the mayor's spending authority. And,
Thank you.
So since it is on first reading, if you could just take a snapshot of the portal. just since we have time, because it will state the $28,000. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, we are now at letter G, motion to enter in an executive session for the purpose of discussing legal proceedings, personnel, and real estate matters. Mr. Bryan, is there any need for executive session?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so we are now at reports of standing committees and taking of action thereof. Building and housing, Ms. Weiser.
We had a building and housing meeting tonight. We began a rather robust discussion of the now combined safe build contract. And we're able to get answers on a number of questions that I think was very helpful. The committee is going to process a lot of what we heard tonight and then finish up discussion in June when we'll have the next building and housing meeting. We also began discussion on the proposed Airbnb ordinance. That was the draft. The law director made a few very, very good suggestions, and that will be updated and will again come back to us in June.
Thank you. Community outreach, Mr. King.
I'll report this evening.
I have a question.
Sure, sorry.
If I remember right, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there was something you might have said or sent around about we need members for the technology committee. Is that correct?
That's correct.
When would we begin to move forward on that?
I still have a little more work to do on that. You will find out when I send them out.
I'll give you a call.
Economic development, Mr. Robb.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a meeting, as Ms. Drucker mentioned, on June 25th for the Zone review.
Thank you. Finance, I have no report at this time. Recreation, Mr. Coon.
Paris Park Pool is expected to be open this weekend for Memorial Day. Passes are on sale currently through the city website. And we have the parade on Monday.
Hope it's rain free.
I think so.
Safety, Ms. Marshall.
Just that it's a possibility, but not guaranteed, that we're going to be having a meeting, a safety meeting on June 3rd. I'm waiting to hear from both of the chiefs if they have any items for anything.
Thank you. Service and utilities, Ms. Sacks.
Thank you. The next Service and Utilities Committee meeting is June 10th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. Committee of the whole, tentatively, we'll either have a committee of the whole meeting to discuss the CSC issues, either the date of the safety committee or after the service committee. It will depend on a couple of factors, and that will be posted as soon as we know the details. Are there any reports of special committees that are taking of action thereof? Any unfinished and miscellaneous business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rapp. Mrs. Thomas, will you call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mrs. Sacks? Aye. Mr. Cooney?
Aye.
Mrs. Wise?
Aye.
Mrs. Rock?
Aye.
Ms. Marshall?
Aye.
Ms. Weiser?
Thank you for coming.